Sophia wiped sweat from her forehead as she cleared the last table of her shift. The cafe was nearly empty, except for him, Mr. Whitmore, the old man who never tipped, never smiled, and made employees quit with his sour attitude. Tonight, his gnarled fingers tapped impatiently against the counter. Others avoided him, but Sophia took a deep breath and approached with a warm smile. She had no idea that the kindness she offered him tonight would change her life forever. The air in the cafe grew tense whenever Mr. Whitmore entered. Employees scattered, customers lowered their voices, and the manager conveniently disappeared into the back. Sophia, however, refused to cower. Tonight, as she approached, he barely acknowledged her, staring at the table as if he despised everything around him. "Good evening, sir. Your usual black coffee?" she asked gently. Mr. Whitmore grunted. "Do you not have anything better to do than ask obvious questions?" Most would have shrunk away, but Sophia simply nodded. "Black coffee, coming right up." As she walked away, Melissa, her co-worker, whispered, "You are wasting your time. He is a miserable old man." Sophia ignored her. Minutes later, she returned with his coffee, and on impulse placed a freshly baked oatmeal cookie beside it. Mr. Whitmore's sharp gaze flicked to the plate. "I did not order this." "I know," Sophia said with a small smile. "It is on me." He eyed her suspiciously, but after a long pause took a bite. The room fell silent as he chewed, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he slid a crisp bill onto the table, far more than the cost of his order, and left. The next night he returned, and the next, and the next. Each time, Sophia greeted him warmly, refilled his coffee before he asked, and ignored his gruff demeanor. Slowly, the frown lines on his face softened, the bitterness in his voice lessened. Then, one evening, as she wiped the counter, he cleared his throat. "Young lady." She turned, surprised to find him holding out an envelope. "For you," he said. Sophia hesitated. "What is this?" "Open it," he replied, his tone unreadable. Heart pounding, she unfolded the letter inside. The words nearly made her dizzy. It was an invitation to the Whitmore estate. She looked up in shock, but Mr. Whitmore simply smirked. "You might want to dress nicely." Sophia's hands trembled as she held the invitation. The Whitmore estate. The name sounded familiar, but she had no time to dwell on it. "You are not actually going, are you?" Melissa snorted, peering over her shoulder. Sophia hesitated. "He has never been anything but grumpy. What if this is just an old man trying to be nice?" Melissa scoffed. "Rich people are not just nice. Be careful." Despite her doubts, curiosity won. The next evening, she borrowed a blue dress from a friend and took the bus to the address. When she arrived, her breath caught. The Whitmore estate was enormous. Tall iron gates, pristine gardens, and a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. A butler greeted her at the door. "Miss Sophia, we have been expecting you." He led her through a grand hallway lined with gold-framed portraits. Something about those stern-faced men felt familiar. Then she stepped onto the terrace. Mr. Whitmore sat in a large chair, but he was not alone. Beside him stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a crisp suit. His sharp blue eyes locked onto hers, unreadable, yet intense. "Sophia," Mr. Whitmore said with a smirk. "Meet my grandson, Lucas Whitmore." Sophia's stomach dropped. Lucas Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Enterprises. She had seen his face on magazine covers. Lucas folded his arms. "So, you are the one my grandfather will not stop talking about." She barely found her voice. I did not realize that he was rich," Mr. Whitmore chuckled. "You treated me like a person when no one else did. That is why you are here." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly is here, Grandpa?" Mr. Whitmore's smirk grew. "I have decided that Sophia is the only woman worthy of marrying you." Silence fell. Sophia choked on air. I beg your pardon?" Lucas's expression darkened. "Grandpa, you cannot be serious." "Oh, I am quite serious." Mr. Whitmore leaned back. Lucas, you need a woman who sees beyond your bank account. And Sophia, you deserve a man who will not take you for granted. Spend 1 month together. If by the end you still refuse, I will not interfere again." Sophia's pulse raced. What had she just walked into? Sophia gripped the arms of her chair, her heart hammering. She had been invited here under false pretenses. This was not a simple thank you. This was an arranged setup. She shot to her feet. "I cannot do this." Lucas crossed his arms. "Finally, something we agree on." He turned to his grandfather. "This is ridiculous." Mr. Whitmore sipped his tea, unfazed. 1 month. You both owe me that much." "I owe you nothing," Lucas said coldly. Sophia shook her head. "And I barely know you." Mr. Whitmore's sharp gaze landed on Lucas. "Then you should change that, because if you do not, Lucas, I will make sure the board of directors hears about how you refused to listen to your grandfather's wishes." Lucas's jaw clenched. Sophia frowned. "Are you blackmailing him?" Mr. Whitmore chuckled. "Oh, it is not blackmail, it is guidance." Lucas exhaled through his nose. "Fine, 1 month. But do not expect me to play along." He turned to Sophia. "If you want to leave, go ahead." Sophia should have walked away, but something about Mr. Whitmore's confidence made her pause. This was not just about forcing his grandson into marriage. There was something deeper at play. She sighed. 1 month, but after that I go back to my life." Mr. Whitmore beamed. "That is all I ask." The next few weeks were unlike anything Sophia had ever imagined. Lucas took her to charity events, formal galas, and private business meetings. He remained distant, his walls high, but cracks slowly began to form. One evening, as they strolled through the Whitmore estate's gardens, she finally asked, "Why do you act like you hate all of this?" Lucas stared at the skyline. "Because people only care about money. No one sees me. Just the CEO." Sophia frowned. "That is not true." He let out a dry laugh. "Name one person." She did not hesitate. "Your grandfather." Lucas went quiet. She continued, "And me." His gaze met hers, something unreadable flashing in his blue eyes. The walls between them had begun to crumble. But what would be left when they finally collapsed? Sophia should have been relieved that the month was almost over. Instead, a strange heaviness settled in her chest. She had expected Lucas to remain cold and distant, but in the last few weeks, she had seen another side of him. The man who stayed up late to perfect his company's charity initiatives, who played piano when he thought no one was listening, who teased her about her love for diner milkshakes despite having access to the finest cuisine in the world. And now, it was ending. The night before their agreement was up, Mr. Whitmore called them to his study. "Well?" he asked, watching them over the rim of his teacup. "Have you two come to your senses yet?" Sophia forced a smile. "Lucas is a great person, but he deserves to choose his own future, not have one forced on him." Lucas looked at her, his jaw tight. For a moment she thought he would agree. Instead, he turned to his grandfather. "You were right." Sophia's breath hitched. Lucas continued, his voice steady. "I spent my life thinking relationships were just business deals, that people only saw my net worth. But Sophia, she saw me." He exhaled. "I do not want to lose that." Sophia's heart pounded. "Lucas." He reached for her hand, his touch hesitant but warm. "I know this was not what you planned, but I would like to see where this goes, if you will let me." She searched his face. There was no arrogance, no expectation, just honesty. Mr. Whitmore clapped his hands together. "About time." Sophia laughed, shaking her head. "You planned this all along, did you not?" The old man sipped his tea, smirking. "I have no idea what you are talking about." Lucas chuckled, squeezing her hand. "So, what do you say?" Sophia smiled. "I say, let's find out." And just like that, the girl who once served coffee to a grumpy old man found herself walking toward a future she never expected, with the last person she ever thought she would love.